Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Just Cook. I am Chef Justin Cook, and today I'll be presenting Romano Crusted Salmon with cheese grits and cocktail tomatoes. But before we get started, please take a second and subscribe and click that bell. Want to make sure you get all of the notifications for future videos. We're going to start with a dill and horseradish aioli that will help our crust hold on to our salmon. So take 1 cup of mayo and place it into a bowl, followed by 1 tablespoon of grainy mustard. And next you'll want to grab a fresh piece of horseradish root. No, that's not a deformed parsnip or an ugly carrot, it's horseradish root. Trim off the skin and slice into thin planks. Once you've done that, you'll cut them into thin matchsticks, and from there stack in dice. When all is said and done, you'll need about 1 tablespoon of finely diced horseradish to place in your bowl. Next, you'll turn 1 clove of garlic into garlic paste. So take your garlic, cut into small bits, then grind and scrape until it becomes nice and pasty. Then, using the back of your knife, scrape up your paste and place it into your bowl. Next up, take a small handful of fresh dill and chop small. Then place in bowl. Now mix until fully incorporated. You'll want to wrap this and refrigerate it until we need it later. Now, onto our Romano crust. You'll want equal parts of panko breadcrumbs, Romano cheese, and fresh parsley. Place all 3 into a bowl and mix. Don't be like me, use a bowl big enough to not cause a mess. Okay, set that aside for later. Next, the grits. I'm using stone ground, but you can use whatever you want. Now grits have a 4-to-1 liquid to grit ratio. So I'm using 1 quart of chicken stock and 1 cup of grits. And no, your pan doesn't have to be steaming hot first. That's just what happens when you place a pan onto fire, but didn't have your chicken stock ready and out. Okay, so bring your stock to a boil and add your grits, being sure to whisk as you pour them in to prevent clumping. Now grits do clump easily, so you'll want to continue whisking for about 3/4 of the cooking process. Once the grits are just about done, slowly whisk in about 1/2 cup of heavy cream. Now to add our cheese. I'm using a cheese blend that my good friend Chef Jonathan makes. Feel free to use whatever you prefer. Whisk that in and season with salt and pepper to taste. Okay, so at this point they are slightly undercooked, but don't worry. They will be perfect when it's time for plating. So place them into a bowl and seal tight and set aside. Now, onto our salmon. I've got 1/4 of a side of salmon. You can pick this up at pretty much any local grocery store or marketplace. If you want to buy pre-portioned fillets or even have your local fishmonger go ahead and cut your fillets for you, that's totally fine. As far as regular grocery stores go, this is about as fresh as you can get it. So, first things first, we want to remove the skin. Using a fillet knife, we want to sacrifice a tiny bit of meat at the back end to give us something to grab and hold on to. So cut down to, but not through, the skin. Turn your knife sideways and begin removing the skin. If you're having trouble keeping grip, like I am, once you've gotten started, cut a tiny finger hole into the skin and begin again. Okay, now for portioning. We want 4 to 5 ounce portions. I like to use the 4 to 3 finger method. At the bottom of the fillet, the meat is thinner, so we measure our cut with 4 fingers. Now as we get closer to the top, where the meat is a little thicker, we switch to 3 fingers. And any leftovers you have at the end, do not throw away. Wrap it up and freeze it. Once you've built up enough scraps, over time, you can make some really fantastic salmon cakes. Alright, so once they are portioned, season with salt and pepper. Now we want to preheat our pan with olive oil and melted butter. Once our pan has reached smoking point, we can add our salmon. We want to put them meaty side down. Now don't overcrowd your pan. So either misjudge your needed pan size like I did and have to cook twice, or use a big enough pan from the start. Now they are going to stick at first, and that's okay. Don't freak out and panic. They will release when they are ready. Once they've released, flip them over and turn off your heat. Now spread a teaspoon of our aioli that we made earlier on each salmon fillet, and please ignore my tiny spoon. Next, we want to generously apply our Romano crust right over top of the salmon. Turn your heat back on for a few seconds to make sure the pan is nice and hot, and pour in about 1/4 cup of sherry wine. Then you want to place into a 450-degree oven for about 7 to 9 minutes. Finally, our tomatoes. You want to season a pan with olive oil, salt, and pepper. Once the pan is nice and hot, place the tomatoes in the pan and move them around a little bit. We want to coat the bottom of the tomatoes with our seasonings. Once you've done that, drizzle a little olive oil over top, and again season with salt and pepper. Now leave them and cover with foil until they soften and they caramelize. See that beautiful caramelization? That's what you're looking for. Now for plating. First, ladle some grits right into the center of your plate. Then place your salmon, half on the grits, half off, and finish with your tomatoes. And voila! This is too good not to share, so I invited my buddy Derek over to help me out. Thank you all for joining me on our inaugural episode of Just Cook. Again, I'm Chef Justin Cook, and I will see you next month for episode 2.